should be working, and we'll all right, so should have a presentation being shared at this point. So as Diane pointed out, I am Paul Barraclough with Lee Engineering, and we are happy to assist the city on this traffic calming and pedestrian safety study. Also on my team with us is Stephen Montano. He joined us in the field today, and it was a lot of his work and effort has been put into the presentation you'll see here. So with that, I think we went through introductions, and most folks are familiar with this part of the corridor. The bounds of the corridor are from Paseo. Not really worried about that intersection proper, but from that intersection to the south, down to the lower limits of the school boundary. As you see, you know that the cross section generally is pretty large, and there's a lot going on this community facility. As we did briefly talk about, there's kind of 3 ways to stay informed. The first one is to post your email in the chat box. That will put you on the distribution list. And then if you wanted to, you can also send Diane an email, and she'll keep you informed of the projects ongoing. And we also have a City of Albuquerque website that will follow along with this recording, and probably the presentation and other materials you'll find that there. So definitely a few ways to stay connected as we move through the study. In general, timeline for the project, in early August, a few weeks after school started, we did some data collection, site visits, photos, and then we put out several counters, which we'll go through. We proceeded to analyze that data, which brought us to today, which this morning, a group of us observed the AM school hours, the afternoon egress of the school hours, and we hung out a little while and walked up and down the corridor to just get general observations throughout the entire corridor. Looking forward, we're going to take the information that we receive here tonight, and the discussion, along with the data we collected today and in September, and put that together and come back with some safety countermeasures and strategies. We will bring those back to this group sometime late November, I believe. The date is not set at the moment, but we will post that on the website and the emails, and that's why those contact information and getting on that list is very important. Towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, the final report will be submitted to the city. I believe, and this is probably a good time to take a break. I believe we had Councilor Borrego join us.
Well, good evening, everyone. Sorry, I was having a problem getting into the meeting. It was asking me for a passcode, and then it finally let me in. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Lee Engineering. Thank you to Diane Dolan, and thank you to my assistant, Susan B. Hill. As you know, we were out on the site this afternoon. Anyway, I was out with the engineers and with Diane, and we were there about the time that the high school was being, the students were let out, and we were watching just the interaction between the students and the cars, the traffic, and the crosswalks, and just the whole sort of interaction there. And I think there were some of you folks that might have been there this morning, and thank you for being there this morning. If you were, I just, we were talking about alternative options that could be on the table. And what I asked the engineers is, I said, I think everything needs to be on the table. And then we can start deciphering through and deciding what is the best strategy alternative option, whatever you want to call it, for creating a safer environment. And we all kind of had some ideas coming from, different backgrounds. But I think that this is really the first of the public's input. About 2 years ago, there was a meeting at Tony Hillerman, which I was involved with, and we were aware of this problem, and we have been aware of this problem, and we did take some measures to try to create some safety, some safety alternatives about, I guess it was south of the school, to make some improvements on the roads with our traffic engineers, but we really need some additional safety measures out here. And I think that this is what we're going to see as a result of this timeline. So thank you for joining us this evening, and we look forward to looking at all the options that come about as a result of these meetings. And I just want to welcome you all. Thank you all for being with us this evening. I think you're in good hands, and we look forward to seeing what those alternatives are that are going to be offered. Thank you to Lee Engineering and to Diane and to Susan for hosting the meeting. And I'm going to jump off at this point and let you get on with your meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Brego. It was nice actually having you out in the field and having your representative out there and getting to interact with the community. That was very nice.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for your patience and my questions as well.
We'll get it done.
Thank you.
Right, so I think we ended up on the timeline and completed that. So we'll move forward with the just kind of redefining the study area. This is my slides. The corridor is about 1.1 miles in this section. You can see there in the photo from Paseo to the southern property of Volcano Vista and Tony Hillerman. We also have the elementary school kind of tucked in behind the APS soccer complex. So that adds another piece to the project. Rainbow Boulevard is a regional primary arterial, principal arterial. One, that means it goes a long way. It goes up, from Unser to the south, which this makes it the start of this corridor, if you will. And then the long range plan, and again, we're talking about 20 and 30 years down the road, Rainbow would be connected up through Rio Rancho, almost north to the Pueblo. So there's quite a bit of distance in the entire setup of the corridor, but we're looking to make sure that this piece of the corridor is correctly designed and works for the community that it does go through. Just a quick intro to some of the dimensions of the corridor. We do have a 9-foot walking path on the west side of the corridor. It does have a small landscaping buffer before the 4-foot bike lane. That's 4 foot plus curb and gutter, just to make sure that it is compliant. 2 12-foot lanes and a 40-foot planting strip. On the opposite direction of the corridor, it does also have the 12-foot lanes, the bike lanes, small landscaping buffer, and then on this side is a 6-foot sidewalk. So quite a large area, and that said, it's very well landscaped and fairly well maintained. So there's a lot of great things about the corridor. We'll just see if we can tweak it. As we step into some of the data, we look at the annual growth rate. What is going on with the corridor as far as the traffic volumes go? And you can see it was pretty flat, but in 2015 till now, it's begun this this growth segment of it. And I foresee that this will happen, continue to happen in the future. As you notice on the map there, and you know from the area, there's still a lot of vacant land around, and the rooftops are still being built. So this corridor will still continue to grow on traffic volumes at that point. In addition to the historic traffic volumes that we looked at, we deployed 4 pneumatic tube traffic data collectors throughout the corridor to get a gauge on what is the traffic doing. Again, these were put just after school started, maybe a couple weeks, and we counted out there for 48 hours. And I'll be reporting on that data at the moment. Additionally, we put out a few video camera recorders, and the object of these 2 specifically were to try to investigate a concern we heard on mid-block crossings, folks avoiding or jaywalking, if you will, around the crosswalks that are provided. So we really want to make sure that those crossings are happening at the safe location and trying to create those where they're absent. If we dive into the traffic volumes, we'll start on the north side of the corridor. This is generally a residential back road, if you will. Both sides, there's no residents on the facility, but it does traverse through several neighborhoods. What you see is right now, the volumes are very centric around the school ingress and egress periods. And if you've been out there, you can you know exactly what I'm talking about. The volumes significantly increase during those times. The other trend that we see is that the AM peak hour is a little bit lighter than the PM peak hour, one, because it draws out a little bit, but generally impacts of COVID to the traffic volumes, we've seen a little bit less in the AM. Flexibility in work schedules and things of that nature have reduced the AM peak hour in many cases. If we dive into that same data collection period, we see what most of us know about the corridor is that we do have a speeding problem. So the corridor the entire segment is posted at 30 miles per hour. And what you see in the data here is that the average speed is closer to 40. And then some of the percentile speeds kind of go up beyond that. Concerning is that bottom line where it basically says 85% of the data population is going below this. What said conversely, that means 15% are going above 15, 18 miles an hour over the speed limit. And that's definitely a concern. And we see that throughout the data collection. So I'll kind of run through that, the data here. As we get south of Woodmont, very same traffic patterns, highly driven upon the school, ingress and egress hours. The traffic volumes do grow a little bit as we get closer to the school. And then if we look, we do have a little nuance coming in that when we start to get these traffic volumes around the school, the congestion and the pace car style mentality can influence the traffic stream as a whole. And we see around those peak periods that the traffic volumes do come down on average into compliance. There's still quite a few people out there, as you see in the 85th percentile speed limit, speed data going 10 to 12 over. As we step down into the school area, we do see some reduction in volume, and that is due to the fact that there's ongoing or on-site circulation. And this one is kind of trapped, this counter is trapped in the middle of those two intersections. But again, same trends here. When we do look at the school data, we added these red lines, which are the 15 mile an hour threshold. And in there, we do see efforts towards compliance. We don't get there, that's for sure. A couple columns there on the right are added on this slide, just looking at those 15-minute windows. The data is not to the granularity and match specifically to the school zones. Our data might start at 7 a.m. where the flashers might start at 7:15. So there is a little bit of date time offsets on that, but it does give you an indication that folks are, there's an effort being made. And there is a lot going on in front of the schools at that time. So there's the environment is more conducive for the lower speeds. Stepping down just below the school property proper, we finalized another count. Volume trends very much the same. And then speeding follows suit. You can see some of the school influences in those peak hours, but generally 10 to 12 over the posted speed limit for those areas. As I discussed, we also looked at locations with pedestrian activity. We put up counters at Woodmont and also near the Trails Dog Park area. One of the primary reasons for these two observation points is those were our best guesses of where folks might be crossing mid-block. And so in general, you can see on the slide that there are volumes of the pedestrian and bicyclists. These are the volumes using the trails and the sidewalk on the roadway. In addition to that, we did observe 3 mid-block crossings during that. This would be a 12 to 13 hour period. This one just happening just above Woodmont. It's a signalized intersection. Very possible that he did press the button, but once he got to the median, he chose to walk behind the cars. Walking through the vehicles queuing is highly discouraged. We're looking at ways to educate and get better compliance for this movement here. Additionally, another same location, another user you can see there traversing the median chose to walk quite a significant ways up the median before coming to that. One thing that is concerning about this one, you can see there that she needed to kind of jog across the road to finish it, but you can see there's a slight curvature of the roadway limiting some of the long distance visibility. The crossing at this point is highly discouraged, as you would not expect somebody to jump out of the landscaping and the pampas grass and other trees in the median. And finally, well, there's more data for the other count that we collected by the Trails Dog Park. You can see the traffic, pedestrian traffic and the bicycle traffic is up a little bit from the last one. Again, very happens throughout the day, but very school centric as you would expect. And camera placement, you can barely just see them on the bottom left corner as made that maneuver between the neighborhood gate and the Trails Dog Park. So this is probably, I believe, the Woodmont crossings, we can, the crosswalk is there, we need to work on compliance. In this area, we need to work on the environment to ensure that we're giving the proper instructions so that folks are not trying to cross mid-block between the neighborhood and the Trails Park. If we look into crash data for the corridor, we see that the density graph on the left shows that most of the crashes do happen at Paseo del Norte. This is going to be the highest volume traffic signalized intersection within the area. You can see the intersection crash rate is basically the rate of crashes per million vehicle miles entering. We do that to get a level playing field and be able to compare intersection crashes depending on the volume. And so with that, the crash rate is 1.4. That is above average for the city. It's probably not out of the realm for a very busy intersection like Paseo del Norte to have a slightly higher crash rate than average, but it is something to look at. The rest of the corridor is experiencing moderate crash rates. They're well below the average for the city. If we dive in a little bit deeper, and this is 2015 to 2019, so 79 crashes for those 5 years. And then if we look further into the data, we look at the severity of the crashes. The good news is in this residential area, we do not have any fatality or serious injury crashes. We did have some significant enough to have visible injury, and then several that did alert the officer at the time of the crash that they were injured or were going to seek medical attention. The majority of the crashes were property damage only, no greater than 2/3 of those. But definitely want to take a stab at trying to reduce these as much as possible. If we looked at the bicycle and pedestrian crashes for the corridor, we had one pedestrian and bicycle crash at Paseo del Norte, another cyclist crash at Woodmont, and a pedestrian incident at the student access point south of Volcano Vista. When we look at the contributing factor or the common cause as recorded by the officer, we have several different varieties here. Driver intention is generally a catch-all for things that happen that the driver should have been paying attention to and was partially responsible for. Many of these can get pulled together in that same kind of category. Failed to yield right away is kind of a general moral of the story is I don't see any real outliers or things that would be atypical of a corridor or intersection study like this. It's good to note that important to note that we do have a few of the excessive speed contributing to that, speed too fast for conditions. And so that would go in line with the speed data that we do have through the corridor. So kind of transitioning from the data that we collected to the observations and the concerns that we've heard to date. So with that, this is kind of gearing up for that discussion we're going to have at the end of this meeting, where we talk about have we assessed the corridor correctly? Are there other things that our observations didn't catch that you've seen throughout the corridor? So we'll walk through these, and then we will open it up to those conversations. Again, the goal here is to make sure we fully understand the concerns of the community. While we may have discussions on solutions, that's really not this meeting. It is the following meeting that we'll discuss candidates for solving the problem. So as we talked about, and as the data showed, we definitely have a speeding concern through the corridor. I mean, this is just walking down and you can just watch the sign all day, and it indicates and validates that there is a speeding problem on this corridor. In a few areas, there are worn and faded pavement markings. Just about time to get the maintenance crew out there and get those refreshed. Not a huge concern, but it's a good time to take a look at that and make sure that we're giving the guidance and the safety indications that we need. One of the things that we looked at throughout the corridor, being this intersection at Woodmont or Hearthstone, and even at the school intersections, they have very long crossing distances. Those are generally, they're not pedestrian friendly, even when they're in a signalized intersection, as the pedestrian's in a more vulnerable state for a longer time period and a longer distance. So the trends, the best practices, or to try to take a stab at making those shorter, maybe making them 2 stages, so you're only exposed on a shorter or a reduced time. So we'll be looking at opportunities that we may be able to improve those conditions. Throughout the north side of the corridor, there's a couple locations where we do have opportunities for additional crossing enhancements. Right now, they're unmarked. This is kind of common on the crossings on the side streets, but you can see that this is an intersection. It is a legal crossing for pedestrians to cross the main street, and at this point, they are unmarked. We will be looking at the national guidance on when those should be marked and what kind of treatments would accompany that, and we'll be looking into that. Another thing, while we're out there, we observed some ADA compliance challenges. The picture on the top is generally decent, although the crosswalk does have a little jog in it, not preferred. But the picture on the bottom left is kind of near the park, and there's a very large sidewalk alignment issue. You can see there it's probably in the 2-inch range. That'll catch a foot, or it is very difficult for wheelchairs to overcome those. Additionally, in the bottom right, many of the modern standards do require the truncated domes that you see on the top photo, and there's generally an approved trend to use directional ramps, maybe one going on the side street and another one going across the main street. So you do have directionality when you enter the intersection. Additionally, we observed some sight distance challenges. We haven't got the tape measure and that out to the field yet to verify it, but we did definitely put ourselves in the driver's seat, or as we walked and crossed the intersection, there's discomfort at these locations. You can see here at Treeline, the first picture is looking east, southeast, if you will. And the landscaping, while very attractive, it does kind of inhibit the long sight distance on that corridor. If you combine that with folks traveling over the posted speed limit, it is definitely a challenge, and it's definitely uncomfortable. We observed several drivers in the field using a 2-stage left turn, meaning I do have clearance from one direction, and I'll go take a pause in the middle of the intersection, and then gain the sight distance in this case to make the additional the rest of my maneuver. So we did observe that. As a pedestrian, you're definitely in the same boat. Once you begin walking, say in the top photo, you definitely don't know if it's clear to make the whole distance. Again, it's a long crosswalk. You're going to need 30 or so seconds to make that maneuver, and you definitely don't have that sight distance. You do have a little bit of refuge in the middle that you can use, but definitely a challenge and an opportunity to make some improvements here at Treeline. We found similar situation at Hearthstone. The curve on the corridor is not as drastic. The trail does help some of the sight distance, but you can see that I believe this lavender plant might be ready for a trimming to help improve the sight distance at that location. In the bottom, you find a similar instance where the landscaping does, in this case, make it quite a bit challenging to get the time and the distance that you need to make your decision. So with that, that comes to the end of the observations. And at this point, we will go through with Diane and myself, the project team, and open up the questions. I think what I found in the past is the best way to do that is to have folks raise their hand. Does that work, Stephen? And then we will.
Paul, if I could jump in real quick,
Please.
if you don't mind, could you or Stephen post that web page link into the chat so people can copy it if they'd like? I did send it out in the email notification of this meeting, and I will be sending out a link again as a follow-up to this meeting when the video is posted. But if we could post that in the chat right now, if anybody would like to just copy and paste it at this point. Thank you.
There you
Oh,
go,
it's in the chat.
Steve's got quick fingers.
He does. Thank you, Stephen.
So does Zoom have the raise your hand feature?
It does. For anybody who's not real familiar with Zoom, if you go down to the bottom of the screen where you can turn your microphone or video off and on, and you see the chat option, you'll see an option called reactions. And if you click on that, you can click raise hand. There we go. I see a hand just went up.
Here we go. Yes. The buttons are located in a different place when you're in presenter mode. So
Oh,
I couldn't find it. Is that the Butler family? Is that
Yeah, so my name is Josh Butler.
Bueller? Thank you.
So do you just want questions right now, or would you care for some comments as well? I'm not quite certain what your thought is with that.
This is going to be an open forum. I guess the first part of the question is, did we accurately capture many of the troubles that are out there? Do you have any other concerns? And then we would definitely be interested in hearing the questions. I don't know if we'll have the answers at this point, but if the questions presented today, that gives us a task to do for the next meeting. So please. Yeah.
So I have just a couple of thoughts about this. So I'm with the Valle Prado Neighborhood Association. I'm the president of the association. I've lived here since 2016, and quite frankly, I realize that this is water under the bridge, but this is a bad design. I don't know who designed a thoroughfare like Rainbow and put high schools and middle school right on the thoroughfare. And I'm sure that someone must have stood up at one point and been like, hey, this is a bad idea. We should do something different. And for whatever reason, they didn't listen to them. Another bad design is actually getting built right now on Woodmont, higher up where it connects into the Ventana West Parkway. So right there where Catalonia empties out on a road called Bella Terra, there's actually a blind rise. There's a blind rise where cars on either side can't see each other. They didn't have to put that in. They could have blasted it out. They put the blind rise in the road anyway. And my concern is we'll actually see deaths there before we see them in the school area. The school area is fairly flat, fairly wide, well lit, and you have better visibility there than anywhere else on Woodmont. But sadly enough, can't do a whole lot about that now, although I would love to see something done about Woodmont, where it's getting built at right now. Anyways, I feel like that what we're seeing is some problems of a design that's not that great, that's being exacerbated by a lot of underdeveloped streets. So Rainbow is the only, you can call it 2-lane or 4-lane road, or mostly 2-lane or 4-lane road off of the Mesa going north-south. As a matter of fact, it's kind of the only road. Unsur is going across the Mesa is not a real road. Universe going across the Mesa is not a real road. Paseo going across the Mesa is not a real road. I think there are a lot of people that use Rainbow that could use Universe, but they use Rainbow because they can actually get up it and don't have to wait at the light as long because it's 2 lanes. And so when I look at this and say, what you really want to do is reduce traffic through that school area. You talk a lot about speeding. Speeding is endemic through all the city. especially on the west side. I used to live on the east side. East side people do the east side shuffle. West side people do the west side hustle. It's just the way I've always kind of seen it when I've been here. Why that is, I'm not certain. But you really want to reduce the traffic that goes through that corridor, and especially when kind of school's in session. Is it possible for me to share my screen? Would that be okay?
Diane?
I'll say yes and see if oh, it's disabled. I can't do it. So you'll have to imagine this for me, if you will, instead. So right now you have Woodmont that's going to come down and empty into Rainbow. And so all the commuters and people like that come off of Woodmont that will connect into Ventana West Parkway will come down that, and they'll turn onto Rainbow, and they'll go down that road and they'll congest it further. If you right now that light is geared to off of the green to Rainbow. If you actually geared that light so it offered the green to Woodmont, they would go through Woodmont over to Universe and go down Universe instead, and over to Rainbow and catch it there after the school. And that's a viable option of a way you can circumvent traffic, either at certain times of the day or all the time, around the area that you're worried about having high density and lots of pedestrians and things like that. I do worry about the speed on that road too. I don't know what to do. Last I talked to APD, they don't even pull over people that are teenagers anymore. So that's an endemic problem that we're dealing with that I don't have a good solution for. But that's a way to reduce traffic through that Rainbow school intersection, at least at certain times of the day. Another thing you can do as well, oh good, you have it up as well. If you actually go, if you were to move this map down a little bit lower from the south, so go down, let's go a little higher, go down to the intersection of Unser and Rainbow. So intersection of Unser and Rainbow, it's interesting. If you actually made Universe, where Scenic Drive connects into Universe across Rainbow, so you have the Rainbow Universe intersection. There's a lot of cars that come north on that intersection, up that road. They come up Rainbow at the end of the day, and they take Rainbow because it's a bigger road. If you want to divert traffic around this area, what you do, Scenic Drive, which is on one side of Rainbow, and Universe, which is on the other, just takes, Scenic Drive is a 1-lane road each way. Universe needs to be a 2-lane road each way. What you can do is offer a dedicated, always open right turn lane there for commuters to go north on Universe instead of on Rainbow, and they'll take it. They'll take it all the time, especially if this light is slow and offers, you know, options to everyone else of left turn for different people, Scenic Drive ways. If there's actually a dedicated right-hand turn lane where people can basically get into their own dedicated lane and they don't have to stop at the light, they'll take that and they'll go up Universe instead. Universe is zoned differently than Rainbow is. Rainbow basically goes through a lot of residential, and it goes through a lot of school, but Universe actually has commercial on one side completely. And then it has some residential and school on the other side. So this is a way you can actually divert traffic that might be unwanted around this area so that you don't have it as much. And it would work. I take this road every day to work. I would take the Universe option if it was just the option that was easiest and most open to me. Let's see, what was some of the things? Oh, okay. So this you should finish Unser, you should finish Universe. I'm confident there are people taking Universe that don't want to take Unser just so they can get through that headache of a light. Unser at Paseo is a backup that backs up a quarter of a mile sometimes because it's a single lane road. Those people go over to Universe, and other people that will take Universe but don't want to take Universe because it's too crowded take Rainbow. So you can kind of clean things up if you actually made the roads and got the roads being as big as they're supposed to be. Let's see. So here's another interesting thought. The drop off, when you talk about a lot of congestion in the school area during school hours, you're double counting cars, or at least some of them. And the reason is that the way that the cones are set up, you have cars that go one way and they get into the school and they can only go out and turn right again and get back on the road, and they go up to the light and they turn left at the light at Rainbow and Woodmont, and they turn back around and traverse back to the school again because they came from the south and need to go south again to go back home. One of the things you may want to consider is actually get rid of the drop off and pick up on Rainbow and actually have the entrance to the drop off be on Universe, and have the exit be on Rainbow, or something like that. Actually run between two big streets. So there's that big school area, parking area that's just off of, well, it's kind of in the middle, but it can be accessed from Rainbow, and it can be accessed from Universe. Look into using that instead. It would be a better way to shape traffic in a circle, so that you would reduce the congestion over here by the schools. So those would be some ways to just kind of fix a lot of these issues. More traffic is coming. There's a 300 apartment complex is going to get built on the corner of Paseo and Woodmont. They're putting in about 300 homes. But this is something that you could do if you got the streets finished. You've got to get Universe finished, right, to make this work out, and probably Unser, to make this a safer area. As with regards to the curves on Rainbow, I don't know why they put so many curves in. And in reality, I know they do a good job sometimes of cutting the shrubbage down so you can have better visibility. They really should dig those out, and they probably should flatten those berms somewhat, especially near the intersections. They're probably there for one type of a safety reason, so that you don't have cars that are actually crossing intersections or crossing over into opposite lanes of traffic. They're causing another problem instead. So anyways, hopefully maybe you could kind of take a note of some of those things of relatively straightforward practices that could probably do a lot to reduce the traffic load in this part of the school area, and reduce it more to people that actually really need to access it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack there. I do appreciate the observations and the input. Yeah, some of that is the hand we've been dealt, right? The schools are here. The road is the first one built. But yes, definitely some good ideas. And
the reason why you probably don't have a whole lot of traffic data before 2015 is Rainbow didn't actually go through and connect to Scenic at one point. It basically dead ended. So everyone took, it didn't connect to Universe. And so everyone took Universe instead. And so the connection of Rainbow down to Universe and into Unser is a relatively new thing.
Yeah, correct. When they redid the alignment to Rainbow along with that. Yeah.
So I want to add that the Universe traffic calming study, its termini was just extended to Rainbow, so that intersection could be looked at through the lens of both studies. So
you could do a lot to fix the Rainbow issues by addressing Universe, and I think you could do a lot to address the Universe calming issues by actually widening it and making it bigger. I know that the city has a little bit of a roundabout way of actually getting that done. If you notice, we're kind of this island that's getting built out away from all the other things, and so the arterials are really, really poor building up to it. And the way the city is basically finances and plans to widen roads isn't really working for this area at all.
It is also important to note that, which may be helped, but it's still a few years out. Unser and Paseo del Norte are in the study/widening process at the moment. So there's active work going on both of those expansion projects, from Kimmick all the way up to Paradise, and then from Universe to basically the 4-lane section as you come up the Mesa. So
they're not actually looking to widen the road up to Rainbow then, or past that to Ventana West Parkway?
on the Unser project?
Well, the Paseo project, what you said is they're going to go from Kimmick to basically Paradise, which I'm assuming you're talking about as Universe.
Sorry, yeah, I may have misspoke. That should have been, yes. Paseo is from Universe to, the east leg of Kimmick.
Shikaya Norchenia.
It's kind of disappointing.
That they're not continuing to extend it further west? Is that
Well, you know, I
what
know
I'm
that
hearing?
the developer that's going to be building over where Woodmont is, Woodmont connects into Ventana West Parkway, is basically the city is having them do a lot of improvements to that intersection to get that intersection up to snuff. So it's 2 lanes both ways. So it's designed for something like that. So to not actually build all the way to that seems like a bit of a waste for the developer to do that. Of course, they need to do it, but it just sounds like the intersection will be 20 years old or 10 years old before they get around to it.
Well, sir, we did request a scope and fee to extend the study to the city limits. So we have a cost on that. It hasn't been assigned yet, but the project team is considering it.
It's always good news to hear about expansion of the roads here. Thank you.
And then I wanted to add that the Universe public meeting will be on Tuesday next week at, I think, 6 o'clock. And that it will be on the council, the District 5 website, if you want to find the Zoom link and join that meeting as well. Or I can send it to you. I'll have your email, so I'll send it to you.
Definitely lots of moving parts in the area around here. So. Brent. There we go. Hey, Brent.
Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Brent Miller. I'm the president of Trails HOA. And we spoke earlier this morning, Paul, about the area, one of the areas where you highlighted up that tree line and the propensity for people to cross there, even though there's no crosswalk. I think putting a crosswalk in there has definite pluses and minuses. And I'm not sure, based on the pictures that you saw, whether you were talking about the landscaping causing visibility issues coming out of tree line, or what specifically, which areas. In the chat area, I had requested if you have recommendations on the landscape modifications that we could make, or any pedestrian fences that we could even put up, perhaps. I'd love to hear about those as well. And I would agree with Mr. Butler's comments and echo that I think Woodmont is becoming a pretty big issue from the traffic coming down the hill, which will only get much worse. I think as that area is built out and once it connects to Paseo. So I think biasing the light to be for Woodmont would be helpful in the short term, but in the long term, it's just going to be a speedway coming down the hill and straight across a Rainbow. So while I agree that might be a good short-term solution, I don't know if it's a great long-term solution.
Yeah, definitely some changing volumes and directions out there. That's for sure. Thanks, Brent. Brad.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about this, but as you look at it, there's no real official crosswalks between Woodmont and Paseo to cross Rainbow. Treeline and Hearthstone don't really have crosswalks across Rainbow, at least not official ones. So that causes part of the problem on some of the pedestrian traffic within that area, because that's a long stretch to not have a crosswalk across Rainbow. The other issue is the sight line as you're going southbound on Rainbow towards Woodmont. Your sight line to that traffic signal Woodmont is not very good, And if you're speeding coming down southbound, I've noticed several times when I've been out walking through the neighborhood and driving through the neighborhood that there are cars that either have to either slam on their brakes at Woodmont because they're speeding and all of a sudden the light turns red, or they just blow through the light. And the fact that there hasn't been more accidents there is really a testament to the fact that there isn't as much traffic coming from the west side of Woodmont onto Rainbow, more than the fact that there just isn't, more than the fact that they blow the lights, if you will. So as they start building up west of Rainbow, there's going to be more traffic that comes in there, and you're going to see more accidents just because of that sight line coming southbound and the excessive speeding that you see there.
Yeah, definitely. We'll take a look at that southbound towards the intersection. Thank you. Manuel, have some thoughts you'd like to share?
Hello, can you hear me?
Good to go.
All right, well, first of all, good evening. The Dodgers are playing tonight, so I'm going to try to divide my time between this and the game. But I agree with a lot of what's going on. And I've been at Volcano Vista now going on 8 years, and I've seen the area grow significantly. A couple of gentlemen spoke before me. Mr. Butler, I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly, but I agree with a lot of what he says as well. And the concept of maybe one way in and out for parent drop-off is something interesting. I've never considered that. My only concern is this, though. What about Tony Hillerman and the adjacent elementary behind that? They have different schedules, and I'm not sure how that will affect their flow. But anyway, so something I never even thought of, which is an interesting thought. One of the main things that I'm concerned with is the area just south of Volcano Vista on Rainbow. And as Rainbow starts curving and heads up to Universe, I get to school maybe about 6:30, 6:15, depending on what's on tap for the day. Sometimes I see students walking along the street, and when it gets dark, especially in the wintertime, I'm heading north and most people are heading south. And I'm concerned that someday, God forbid, one of those kids is going to get hurt because, number one, they dress in dark clothing, maybe they're not paying attention, they have the earpods on. And that's always been a big concern. Number one, there's not enough lighting, no sufficient lighting just south of the school. And also there's no sidewalks. And I brought this up several years ago. And I think that's where part of the conversation started with this, especially all the growth going on. But as not a resident of the area, as an employee in that area, that's one of the biggest concerns that I have for the kids.
Yeah, kind of adding to that, during the observations today, we saw this. It's a pedestrian bicycle right away, not really designated, but it's a large shoulder on the east side of Rainbow. It actually functioned a little bit more like a cell phone waiting lot at the airport. Folks were parked in this area, and the challenge there is that one, they're making turns into the street, which is not really where we want them, but they also take up any available pedestrian or cyclist room in that area. So it does also have some challenges.
And there was an area, I think you referred to that same area. It used to be a bus stop for the city, and they moved it up closer to the school, which made sense. But as you said, a lot of people park there, including buses, school buses, and either wait for the appropriate time to enter the school, or as you mentioned, they're using their phone or maybe waiting for somebody. But that was something else that I agree with as well.
Thank you, Manuel.
That's all I have. I'm sorry.
Yep, we did note it, and we're going to go out and do some after dark observations to make sure that the system's lights are functioning, and if there's any roadway lighting improvements that need to be made as well.
Those are
Well,
interesting comments because, as you said, most people are driving the other directions. So that's like a focus of the, trying to alleviate the hotspots there. But there's a lot of right on the south side from the map.
If I may, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to excuse myself, but I do thank you for the opportunity to speak and to share my concerns. And also, I think I have a broader scope and understanding of the community. I mean, all I know is it's growing, right? But I don't drive around the neighborhood. So it's interesting that all these projects are happening and the planning that's going to affect the whole community. So I want to thank you, and it was a pleasure meeting some of you in person this morning. I know it was a little late, but there were some issues I had to deal with.
And while we appreciate you coming out and joining us this morning and also being here tonight, I know we do have a couple of other APS folks joining us tonight, and we appreciate their participation as well, and we're going to continue to keep them involved in the process. And one point I'd like to make to that end, with respect to changing pickup and drop off and internal circulations of the APS sites, that is something we could pursue, but it would need to be in partnership with APS.
Yeah.
The city does not actually have jurisdiction over their property or their sites, but it's absolutely an option that we could pursue in conversations and in partnership with APS if that's determined to be one of the.
Well, it's something to definitely look at because I never even thought of something like that. And I think the person to contact would probably be either Casito or Karen Oliver. They're in charge of facilities and planning, and they make all those decisions. But yeah, I agree. At least let's take a look at that. It might help.
That was how the initial corrections to Tony Hillerman, the council were made through direct conversations with the principal and the school to at least relieve some of the concern at that time. So we appreciate that. I mean, obviously we're getting the same parents calling you, a lot of them.
Thank you, Manuel. We'll be here for a few more minutes if you have any other thoughts. If you prefer not to speak up in the meeting, there are other avenues to provide that feedback. I'll just kind of skip over to those again. Oops. Again, email can be posted in the chat. Diane's email is there, and she'd be happy to take any phone calls, right, Diane? So there's the phone number.
Absolutely.
And again, on behalf of Lee Engineering, thanks for your participation in the study. The ideas, we don't all have them all, and we definitely appreciate the insight and the vision for those that are out there every day. So thank you.
And one last thing, as I had mentioned earlier, we will be posting video of this meeting to the project webpage and also a PDF of the presentation. You can click on an email to me right from that webpage. So if you have any neighbors or anybody at APS, students, parents, anyone who might be interested in being involved in this effort, please share this information with them. They can go on at their convenience and watch the meeting, and of course, contact me at their convenience. We We are probably looking at a little bit of an extension of the timeline that Paul presented earlier. We want to make sure we have plenty of opportunity, or give you, the neighbors, plenty of opportunity to provide input, but we'll keep you updated as that goes.
Hey, Diane or Susan, is there an established budget for this project?
So, Mr. Miller, there's not an established budget for the ultimate solutions. So we have a budget for this study, and this study is going to present multiple options for solutions in the corridor. Before the report is finalized, we'll have that next public meeting where then goes to the public. We get input from you. What do you like? What don't you like? And then at that point, we'll have some cost estimates, sort of cost ranges for the different solutions, and really whatever is identified through this public process and analysis process, whatever is identified as solutions, that's going to tell us what the cost is going to be. And sometimes we can mix and match. We can do this one and that one. We can do 3 of them. We can do 1 of them. So that's really sort of going to guide the budget, really, is what the preferred solution of the community is. And then at that point, the counselor would be able to look for funding based on whatever that cost estimate is. But we don't have a cap. We don't have a budget where we're saying the solutions have to be within this dollar amount. This is really more community input and looking for solutions without limiting what that cost might be at this point.
Okay, cover that. Thank you.
This study cost $44,773, which is very a good price. And of course, the city has a competitive bidding for this, the length of the area that is under consideration.
Yep, agreed. Thank you.
When we get to the point of having this study completed and looking at the projects that are recommended, then the counselor will and DMD will identify funds for, as Diane explained, some of those more important or essential projects for correcting the pedestrian issues, and then for the speeding issues at both the state level and at the local level. So it's important to stay in contact with your state legislator. This is something you'd like to see funded at that level. But that's a little way off, probably 2023 state session.
So Paul, I don't have anything else to add if you'd like to go ahead and wrap us up, or.
Okay, absolutely. Just want to make sure we gave everybody ample time. I appreciate again everybody's time tonight, those that were able to join us in the field. And we will continue to investigate and put the comments from today along with our observations and come up with a series of solutions that we can present back to this group and find a community agreement, or at least a direction forward. So thanks everybody again for your time tonight, and stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. This is a good presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like.